The pounding on the door was sharp, deliberate, the kind of knock meant to scare. Jason Carter froze for a split second, his hand still on the kitchen counter, a glass of water halfway to his lips. Another knock followed, louder this time. Voices outside barked with the tone of authority. "Open up! HOA inspection. This is official business." Jason placed the glass down calmly, his face unreadable. He wasn't the type to panic easily, but something about the tone, the arrogance, the certainty, made his jaw tighten. He walked slowly to the door, each step steady, deliberate. By the time he opened it, 3 men stood on his porch, all white, all wearing cheap polo shirts with hastily pinned badges shining under the sun. Their sunglasses covered their eyes, but their smirks told Jason everything. "Finally," one of them said, puffing his chest. "You're out of compliance. This property's a mess and we're here to issue fines. HOA authority." He waved the badge like it was real, holding it close to Jason's face. Jason didn't flinch. He scanned the badge once, noting the flimsy plastic, the crooked lettering. These men weren't cops. They weren't even HOA officials, just neighbors playing dress-up, drunk on their own prejudice. And behind their fake show of authority, Jason could feel it. The real reason they were here. His skin. His presence. The tallest one stepped forward, pointing at the neat flower beds Jason had planted just weeks ago. This against code. And that car? He jerked a thumb toward Jason's black SUV parked in the driveway. Doesn't fit the neighborhood standards. You can either pay the fine, or we'll escalate this. Jason raised an eyebrow, his voice steady. Escalate it how? That simple question hung heavy in the air. The men shifted slightly, surprised at his calmness. Most people, when confronted at their own door by men flashing badges, folded. But Jason didn't move. He didn't look nervous. He didn't even glance away. One of them sneered, trying to regain control. "We'll bring in the real police if you don't cooperate. You think you can just live here, looking like that, doing whatever you want? Not in this neighborhood." There it was, the slip, the truth leaking out. Not about cars or flowers or codes. It was about him, his presence in this community, his skin color, the thing they could never say outright, but always meant. Jason let the silence stretch, eyes locked on the fake badge inches from his face. Then, in a voice just loud enough for them to hear, he asked, "Do you even know who you're talking to?" The men chuckled, mistaking his calmness for bluff. One leaned closer, whispering mockingly, "We're talking to a problem, and problems don't last long here." Inside Jason's chest, his heart remained steady, his training kicking in. He didn't raise his voice, didn't show anger. Not yet. Instead, he leaned casually against the doorframe, letting the men think they had him cornered. What they didn't know, what no one here knew, was that Jason Carter had carried a real badge once. And unlike theirs, his wasn't plastic, but he wasn't ready to show it. Not yet. First, he wanted them to dig their own hole, and the neighborhood was watching. Curtains twitched, blinds shifted. People were peeking out, eager for a show. None of them knew they were about to witness something unforgettable. The tallest man shifted his weight and raised his voice, projecting it so the whole block could hear. Noncompliance, failure to cooperate, violation of community standards. This is your last warning. He barked the words like he was reading them from a manual, trying to sound official. But the way his voice cracked on standards betrayed the act. Jason Carter stayed rooted in the doorway, arms crossed now, his calm demeanor fueling their irritation. He didn't blink, didn't frown, just studied them like they were amateurs in a game they didn't know he'd already mastered. "Sir," the second man added, stepping forward. His badge tilted sideways on his polo, the safety pin barely holding it in place. "We're authorized to write you up today. Unless you want this neighborhood marked, unless you want police cruisers parked outside your house, you'll do as we say." Jason tilted his head, his voice low, measured. "Authorized by who?" The man stuttered for a beat but recovered. "The board," he bluffed. "The HOA board has full authority here." Jason's eyes narrowed, though his expression didn't break into anger. "Funny," he said slowly, "because I've actually spoken to the board. And they don't send men with dollar store badges to issue warnings. The tallest one bristled, his jaw tightening. "Listen here, you don't talk back to authority. You think you're smarter than us? You think you belong here, walking around like you're untouchable?" Jason didn't answer right away. Instead, he let the words hang in the humid afternoon air. A car passed at the end of the street, slowing as the driver caught sight of the scene. A woman across the street pulled her dog closer, pretending to check her mailbox while her eyes stayed locked on Jason's porch. The audience was growing, and the fake cops loved it. "Face it," the third man muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. "People like you don't fit in places like this. Doesn't matter how nice the lawn is. Doesn't matter how clean you keep your car. You'll always stick out. You'll always be a problem." There it was again, less hidden this time. The truth spilling out, ugly and raw. Jason's fingers twitched slightly at his side, the only crack in his stillness. But his voice, when he finally spoke, was steady, almost disarmingly calm. "You finished?" The tallest one stepped closer, close enough now that Jason could see the sweat gathering at his temple. He was trying to intimidate, but Jason didn't move an inch. "No," he hissed. "We're just getting started. This is your last chance before we escalate this. And believe me, you don't want us to escalate." Jason let out a quiet chuckle. It wasn't forced. It wasn't mocking. It was the kind of laugh that made the three men uneasy without even knowing why, because Jason Carter had seen escalation before. Real escalation. The kind that left scars on landscapes and in memories. Compared to that, three men with plastic badges weren't even close to threatening. The blinds on the house next door lifted just a little higher. More neighbors leaning in. Jason could feel the weight of their curiosity pressing on the moment. Every eye was on him, waiting for a reaction, and he was about to give them one they'd never forget. The tallest man leaned even closer, lowering his voice so only Jason could hear. "You've got two choices. Pay up and play along, or we'll make sure you regret it. We can make things very hard for you here." Jason's eyes flicked briefly to the man's fake badge, then back up. His calm smile didn't falter. "You're threatening me on my own porch." "Brave move." The second man cut in, his voice louder, aimed at the neighbors now gathering in quiet clusters. "This man refuses to comply. We're giving him every chance, and he's ignoring official orders." Murmurs rippled through the small crowd. Some frowned, unsure what to believe. Others smirked, enjoying the spectacle. That was the worst part. Many of them didn't care whether these men were real or fake. They just wanted to see Jason put in his place. Jason's jaw tightened, but still he stayed composed. He stepped half an inch forward, closing the space between him and the tallest man. Their shoulders almost brushed. "You want to talk about official?" Jason said, his voice low but sharp. "Let's talk about what's real." The tallest man faltered, taken aback by the sudden shift in Jason's tone. For the first time, he sensed something he hadn't before. Control. Not his own, but Jason's. "You think we're playing?" The third man snapped, shoving his badge toward Jason's chest. "We run this block. We decide who stays comfortable here and who doesn't. You really think anyone's going to back you up when it's your word against ours?" Jason exhaled slowly through his nose, the kind of breath that comes before a storm. He let his eyes scan the crowd, neighbors whispering, phones recording. The moment was being captured from every angle. Perfect. Then he looked back at the men, voice steady as stone. "You know the problem with waving fake power?" The tallest one snorted. "What's that?" Jason leaned in slightly, his words cutting through the tension. "Eventually, you run into the real thing." For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the porch. The three men shifted, suddenly less sure, but they doubled down, puffing their chests again. The second one jabbed a finger at Jason's SUV. "Illegal parking violation. That's a tow, right there. Non-compliance. Strike 3. We're calling it in." He pulled out his phone, pretending to dial, glancing at the crowd for approval. Jason shook his head slowly, almost pitying them. "You boys don't even know what you've stepped into." The tallest man slammed his palm against Jason's doorframe, trying to reclaim the upper hand. "Last chance. Cooperate, or we escalate this right now." Jason's calm smile returned, but this time it carried weight, confidence, something that made the three men hesitate without understanding why. "Go ahead," he said softly. "Escalate it." The words landed like a challenge, daring them to cross a line they weren't prepared for. And just as the crowd leaned in, eager for the explosion, Jason reached into his pocket. The men stiffened, their bravado cracking for the first time. The neighbors held their breath. Something was about to change. Jason's hand moved with deliberate slowness. No panic, no flinch. The three men instinctively stepped back, their swagger suddenly fragile. One muttered, "What are you pulling out?" But Jason didn't answer. His fingers slipped into his pocket, and when they emerged, they carried something small, weighty, gleaming under the late afternoon sun. It wasn't a phone. It wasn't a wallet. It was a badge. A real badge. Jason held it up calmly, letting the sunlight glint off the polished metal. The engraved seal, the unmistakable authority etched into every line, caught the eyes of the entire crowd. This wasn't a toy. This wasn't something you could buy online. It was the kind of badge earned with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. The porch went silent. Even the neighbors who'd been whispering stopped mid-sentence. The tallest fake cop's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Jason's voice broke the stillness, calm but commanding. "You boys want to talk about authority? Here it is, real authority. Not plastic. Not play acting. This is the badge of someone who's sworn to protect this country. Someone who's stood in places you couldn't survive for 5 minutes." He let the badge hang in the air, his steady hand holding it between them. "So when you come to my door with your lies, your fake badges and your threats, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting everyone who's ever worn this for real." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman whispered, "He's law enforcement." Another murmured, "Oh my God, he's legit." Phones that had been recording zoomed in, capturing the detail on the badge, the sharp contrast between truth and imitation. The tallest man's face drained of color. He stammered, We didn't know. We didn't mean—" Jason cut him off, his voice suddenly firmer, sharper. "You didn't care. You thought waving fake power made you untouchable. You thought I'd be scared, that I'd bow my head and play along." He stepped closer, his presence towering now, his calmness more intimidating than any threat. "But here's the thing. You messed with the wrong man." The fake cops shuffled back, their bravado shattered. The third one tried to laugh it off, but the sound was weak, hollow. "We were just making a point." Jason lowered the badge slowly, slipping it back into his pocket with precision. "Yeah, and so was I." He let the silence return, but this time it was heavy with a different kind of energy. The neighbors weren't smirking anymore. Their eyes darted between Jason and the retreating men, realizing just how far out of their depth those three had been. The tallest one muttered something about misunderstanding before turning on his heel. The others followed quickly, their heads down, their fake badges suddenly looking more like toys than threats. Jason didn't chase them. He didn't need to. He stood tall on his porch, watching them scurry away under the weight of truth. Then he turned slightly, his eyes sweeping the neighborhood, locking on the people peering through blinds, clutching their phones. His voice carried, calm but piercing. "Remember this. Power isn't about who can shout the loudest or flash the biggest smile. Real power is earned, and it doesn't look like hate." For a moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the blinds dropped, the phones lowered, and silence swallowed the street. Jason stepped back inside, closing the door behind him with quiet finality. He didn't need applause. He didn't need validation. He had said what needed to be said, and somewhere, deep in the stillness of his living room, Jason Carter exhaled slowly. He wasn't just a homeowner. He wasn't just another man targeted by hate. He was proof that prejudice blinds people, that arrogance collapses in the face of truth, and that sometimes the quietest man on the block carries the heaviest weight of all. So the question lingered, unspoken but undeniable. How many times has greatness been overlooked simply because of the color of skin?